Hi, my name is Nikita, and today I will be sharing with you the most common mistakes I found when analyzing games of players rated 1200 to 1800. I went on Reddit, asked people to send me their games, and after analyzing them, I've put together this short video to go over the most common mistakes. So, we're going to be looking at tactical errors. These were by far the most common. Violating opening principles, such as development and moving out major pieces. Pawn structures and plans, this is a little bit more advanced. And finally, advanced topics such as dynamics and long-term sacrifices. Okay, let's look at the actual examples. First example, white to move, and they played pawn to g4. First of all, this is a mistake. Shouldn't move pawns in front of the king, opening it up. But there's also a tactical reason why this is a mistake. Black to move, find the strongest move. We're able to find it. You had to see that there was a X-ray here with the rook looking through the F file at the bishop, and the correct move here is knight to F3. After queen takes F3, knight E4, opening up the rook, and regardless of where the queen moves, the queen has to move because it's attacked twice by the knight and the rook. Next move is going to be knight to F3, fork, winning material, and the game. Alright, next example. In this position, white is obviously slightly better. They have more active pieces, but the position should be balanced. However, black missed white's idea and played pawn to E5. Your move, white to move, how would you play? This is a distraction tactic, and in this position, white played bishop to B7. Very strong move, distracting the bishop from the D7 square, and white is now up material, and with more active pieces is much better. Okay, next example. Here it is black to move. Black missed that the knight was hanging, and instead went for the attack with G4. White to move. How would you play if you were white? If you found the move knight to B6, you are correct. This is a pin, and you can combine it with the fork to win the queen. I think a lot of weaker players, lower rated players, would get carried away with the fact that they're under attack after G4 and start focusing on the king side, looking to defend their knight or maybe moving it away or taking back. But the correct move is knight to B6. Okay, next we have breaking opening principles. So in this position is black to move. This is a tactical puzzle, not opening principles yet. How would you play? If you found the move knight to h4, that is correct, removing the defender of the knight, and after rook takes, queen takes, what black is up a pawn. Now, what should we do with this rook? If you said bring it back to h1, that is correct. In the game, however, white played rook to f4. This is a mistake. It is still the opening early middle game, and you should keep your major pieces back. After rook to f4, this rook will now only look active. Instead, it will become a target, and now either it will get lost or white will have to waste a lot of time moving it around, getting it out of trouble's way to preserve it, and so wasting time in the opening. Meanwhile, what they should have done is move the rook to h1 and carried out some sort of developing idea here and castled and finished development. So after rook f4, your move, how would you play if you were black? How do we take advantage of the fact that the rook is just stuck in the middle of the board? The correct move is queen to g3. And after king f1, black can simply trap the rook with pawn to g5 and pawn f5, and as you can see, the rook has nowhere to go. So once again, in the opening, don't bring out your major pieces, the queen, king, and rooks. They are vulnerable. Leave them behind for the middle game when they actually have something to attack. Okay, next example. This is an example of king being stuck in the center, violating again the opening principle, not completing your development quickly enough. So in this position is white to move, and white correctly noticed that there is a discovery threat on the queen. After, say, castle, knight to g4, attacking the queen, black can win the bishop pair. So white should have played something like queen d2, getting out of harm's way and completing their development next move. However, in the game, white played queen to d1. Okay, so first of all, this is a waste of time because your queen went to d4 and then back to d1, so you wasted 2 moves. Second, you now interfere with castling. It's going to take you at least 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 moves to castle. Black to move, take advantage of this king stuck in the center and lack of development by white. If you found the moves rook e8 or pawn to d5, you're on the right track. But the correct move is the immediate knight e4. After knight takes on e4, we're opening up the file in front of the king. And after knight takes d5, white is in big trouble. Regardless of where this knight goes, black is going to follow up with d4. And then rook to e8 with deadly threats on the king. If you block, bishop to g4, or even queen to d5, taking advantage of this fork, but rook e8 I think is a little bit more instructive. Alright, so again, opening principles, complete your development as fast as possible. Queen to d1 is a big mistake. Okay, now moving on to more advanced topics, pawn structures. The next couple examples are going to be all pawn structure related. Black to move. Black is down a pawn. How would you play in this position? Okay, if you said knight e4, you are wrong. Unfortunately, this is not correct for 2 reasons. Number 1, because the pawn wasn't going anywhere. We do not need to rush to take it. But more importantly, for tactical reasons. Now white plays the very strong knight d4, opening up his bishop, and after takes, fixing his pawn structure and just being in a much better position. White has control of the center and 2 bishops. So, what is the correct move? Black has a couple good opportunities here, but the most important is to realize that these pawns are very weak and they are static. They are not going anywhere. They are stuck. These are double isolated pawns. These are just doubled pawns. We can always gang up on them later and win them. So the correct move here is to realize that these pawns are going to be here for a long time, interfering with the position, and to exchange the knight. As you hopefully know, bishops do not like closed positions, and now you can see here the bishops are just stuck staring into their pawns, and the knights will dominate. Black can continue with queen to e7, queen to e6, and start targeting these pawns, and eventually one of them will fall. They're not going anywhere, as I said, and black gets to preserve a long-term advantage, slowly improving the position. Okay, this is a really good example for players who struggle finding a plan. Black to move, how would you play? Alright, so right now we are in the middle game. It is time to come up with a useful plan. Where are we going to be playing for as black in the coming moves? Which side of the board do we want to expand on, attack on, etc.? Black played b6, and that was incorrect. I will give you a little trick how to come up with a plan. The pawn structure will point you in the direction of where you should be playing. The arrow, the head of the pawn chain, will give you more space on that side of the board, and where you have more space, you have more ability to maneuver and conduct a proper attack. So in this position, the correct move was f5. And after f5, you can continue expanding on the king side and attacking. This should, if you're familiar with openings, this should remind you of the King's Indian defense. Same kind of idea. All right, back to pawn structures. Space advantage. So as I mentioned, the pawn structure will show you where you should be attacking. In this case, black has ample of opportunity to attack on the king side and on the queen side because they have more space in both areas. In fact, black has an overwhelming space advantage on the whole board. And one example here could be to play g5, g4, expanding on the king side. As you can see, white's position is very cramped and it's not clear where to put these pieces. When you have a space advantage, you should not trade pieces, and you should try to come up with a attack or constructive plan how to convert this advantage into something else. For example, material advantage, or maybe a checkmate through a successful attack. Because on its own, space advantage is potentially a weakness. You can imagine if you go into an endgame, all these far advanced pawns are now targets. For example, this pawn e5 is a target. You already need a piece constantly defending it. You can imagine if you get to an endgame, maybe this knight gets traded off. Now you don't have a defender. So, how should black play here? Well, as I mentioned, g5, g4 continued developing and attacking on the king's side. Instead, black started going in the wrong direction and played queen to a5. And this is very instructive for players in this 1200 to 800 range. Don't go for superfluous attacks. If the attack has no follow-up, if there's no clear plan, don't do it. In this case, black is giving a check. Obviously, white is going to defend. And after bishop d2, you have no useful follow-up. Black went a step further. What they should have done is retreated the queen, brought it maybe even back to d8, and pretend like it never happened. But instead, they played bishop to b4. This is already a big positional mistake. Why is it a mistake? Well, it's because you're starting to trade pieces when you have more space. And actually, you can see here after a3. Now, this square is free for the knight, and white can slowly start to untangle. And white's job is easier. And now black still has the advantage, but it's significantly smaller. Again, because they wasted 1, 2, 3, 4 moves without conducting their plan, which is the attack, as dictated by their pawn structure. And 2, because they started trading pieces in a position with more space. Okay, last example, active defense. This is the most advanced and the most complicated. It is white to move. How would you play? Black has a very dangerous queen on e2 and a pass pawn on d4, which is 3 steps away from becoming a queen. How would you play? If you said queen to f1 trying to trade queens, you are wrong. This is not correct because black doesn't have to trade queens. And after the move like queen e3, we realize that, well, first of all, we can't even continue chasing the queen because of queen c1 with a fork. So we have to play king h1, a passive move, and black can simply develop and you have no threats and the pawn will continue. Instead, you should always look for active defense. How can you defend against your opponent's threats? By creating threats of your own. And here we notice the weak placement of black's king. It's very open. And we take advantage of that by playing queen g5. Now we create threats of queen d8, forking the king and the bishop, and indirectly stopping d3, again thanks to the fact that we have a fork on the king and the pawn. So after queen g5, white is in the driver's seat. They're going to start harassing the black king, and it is black who now needs to be careful not to land into trouble. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I will be making more posts on Reddit, etc. Looking for people to send me their games for analysis. Thank you everyone who sent their games. I'm going to share on the screen a 2-week plan, how I would improve if I was a 1200 to 1400 rated player. And alright, till next time. Thank you.